Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Julia and I am a mom of two very chaotic toddlers. So if you hear them in the background, that's just gonna happen as a mom and doing videos like this. So please bear with me as I learn how to be in front of the camera versus behind the scenes. I have what is called alloimmunization, and that is basically what we're going to go over in this video, is talking about it and what it means and what it is and all that. I've been wanting to document and share my story with my son's pregnancy and all that since I was pregnant with him, because I had zero information. When I was pregnant with him, I literally did not even know what it was called, like my condition was called, until I was around, I think, 33 weeks. So I had to do a lot of research on my own, and I've learned considerably a lot since then. So I decided I wanted to start something and share my story and just go from there. So now that we have the introductions kind of out of the way, I will talk about what all goes into alloimmunization. That's kind of the starting point. Alloimmunization is what I have. It deals with my pregnancies and it deals with blood types. So I had a missed miscarriage, and because of that, my body was introduced to a different blood type than my own. Now, what that means in my case is that my body made antibodies against the antigens that were in the other, the baby that I miscarried, their blood type. So through that, what happens is the antibodies will bind to future babies' pregnancies if they have matching antigens. So if you have like C and D antibodies, and the baby has C and D antigens, the antibodies will bind to the antigens and destroy the blood cells, which causes anemia. And with that comes a lot of complications, obviously. So in the case for just myself, on like a regular day-to-day basis, it does not affect me at all. Aside from if I were to need a blood transfusion or something like that, they would need to match the antibodies exactly to what antibodies I have. Otherwise, that can cause complications. So having like a medical card, things like that, in case you're like in an accident or something like that, EMTs and everybody already know that I have those antibodies and that I need a very specific type of blood, which also means it can take a while to properly type and get the blood that you need, like donor blood that you need. So yeah, that I, in my own personal experience, have noticed it can take some time. But aside from that, there's no other complications aside from the fact that in pregnancies, because I have alloimmunization, it passes down to the baby. It does affect the baby. And with that, we lead into HDFN, which is then what it would be called for the baby. It's called hemolytic disease of the fetus and newborn, or HDFN for short. That just means that my antibodies are attacking the babies faster than what the baby's body is able to produce. And when that happens, the baby becomes anemic. They are able to detect that through an MCA scan, Doppler. It's super interesting. It was very fascinating to see just the science behind everything and how they treat this and how they do the scans and everything. It's literally just a specialized ultrasound. They look at a specific vein in the baby's brain, and they take the blood flow from in that vein and they put it through a scan or a computer or something, and that pops out a number, and From there, they're able to tell whether the baby is becoming anemic or not. From there, if the baby is, they will do what's called an intrauterine transfusion, which is or an IUT, which is where they take a needle and they knock you out. You're out for it, thank goodness. And they give the baby a blood transfusion through the umbilical cord. It's nuts to me to think about that that's even something that's within the realms of possible. I mean, science has just come a really long way from, with this situation, so to speak. From there, and I will be sharing like my personal story later. We did have to do IUTs and we did have to do blood transfusions and all that. So we will get into that in the next video. Once the baby is born, they still have the antibodies within their system. And once you have had an IUT, what typically happens is their bone marrow the bone marrow can be suppressed, which means they won't quite be making enough to balance out at the rate that the antibodies are killing off the red blood cells. So typically, once you've had an IUT, you'll likely need transfusions after for the baby, and that's exactly what happened with us. We did. Also, what comes along with this is because of the antibodies destroying the red blood cells, that causes the red blood cell die-off will cause high bilirubin levels, which causes jaundice, and that can become very, very dangerous. If the bilirubin builds up too much, it will become toxic, and if it builds up on the brain, it can cause a lot of things. It's called hyperbilirubin anemia. It can cause brain damage, hearing loss, seizures. I mean, the baby can pass away from this. It's very, very dangerous. And in order to combat the bilirubin levels, they do the Billy lights. So the blue lights, a lot of the moms call them glowworms, because the baby basically glows blue because of all of the lights that are on them. They also have Billy blankets that they can put on the baby to help break down the bilirubin, which then passes through their body. There are several other treatments that they can do. There's IVIG, which is a medication that helps kill off the bilirubin, and then there's also exchange transfusion, which basically just literally exchanges their blood with donor blood to kind of bring those levels down. It just kind of depends on what level they're at and how the baby's handling it and coping with everything else going on. Most babies with HDFN are born early. They don't typically let them go to term because of not being able to get accurate scans after a certain point and not being able to do IUTs after a certain point. So oftentimes HDFN babies are in the NICU for multiple reasons, not just the HDFN and all that. So NICU is intense, or it can be. I was very blessed with the NICU that I had. They were amazing there. We loved them. We had some really good doctors. We had some not so great doctors too, but we'll get into that yet. The most important thing to realize with HDFN is it is not a iron deficiency. The anemia is not being caused by low iron. That I've noticed a lot of doctors, because it is a rare disease, want to treat it like it's an iron issue, and it is absolutely not. I've had to request doctors to do iron tests and stuff like that to check, and then, come back. Oh, wait, his iron levels are really high. He doesn't need the iron. And it was a constant battle with just treatment and all that. So, yeah, once the baby's born and they're released from the hospital, typically what happens is if they've already had a transfusion by the time they leave the hospital, then they will check their levels, hemoglobin, and there's a few other tests that they do. They check it about every 1 to 2 weeks. We did every week. They just go in, check their levels, and if they're getting low, then the next day you'd go in and get another blood transfusion. It can take up to 12 weeks on average for the levels to kind of go up on their own and not need transfusions anymore. In our case, I think it was 4 months 4 months when he finally was done with the transfusions. We got the okay, and he was clear from that. They also check the reticulocyte levels, which are young blood cells. And basically what that tells them is if that number goes up all of a sudden dramatically 1 week, but his levels are still kind of low, they might let it go on another week to see if he's, on the uphill climb on his own. If that level is lower than they'd like to see, it kind of just gives them a gauge to see if their bodies are making a lot of new red blood cells or not, and to kind of catch up, so to speak. Once they're able to get their levels up 2 weeks in a row without any treatment, that is usually when they get the all clear and the go ahead to no longer do treatments and don't have to test anymore. That is basically the rundown of HDFN and alloimmunization, which is what I have with my pregnancies and all that. If anyone has any questions, drop them in the comments and I will go over them probably in the next video. Next video will be my own personal story and how that all affected my pregnancy and what all that means for future pregnancies, because it will affect all of my upcoming pregnancies, most likely. I believe they say it's a 1% chance at a normal pregnancy, so it's very, very low. But there's still 1%. So, you never know. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching. And I'm excited to see you on the next one.